Memberships are a business. It's just a way of doing business. It's not some kind of holy grail, quick path to being able to kick back on the beach sipping cocktails as all this passive income just magically appears in your bank account.
Especially if you want this to be something that actually gives you time back, you need to really go into it considering what you're actually creating and not just copying and pasting what somebody else is doing.
Welcome to the Video Entrepreneur Podcast, powered by Uscreen.tv. This is your host, Rob Balasabas, Head of Partnerships here at Uscreen. And in this podcast, we talk about what it takes to build a successful online video business. And every week, we'll take you behind the scenes with top video creators, experts, and entrepreneurs to discuss the world of online video and what it takes to build a thriving video business. This episode, we have Mike Morrison and Callie Willows joining me to talk about the power of online memberships. Now, Mike and Callie eat, sleep, and breathe the membership industry. They are known as the membership geeks. Mike and Callie have spent years helping grow thousands of high-performing membership sites and online communities. They're also the hosts of an award-winning podcast, not to mention they've got 3 best-selling books, and they've worked with huge brands like McDonald's, ITV, and Ancestry.com. And so without further ado, let's talk to Mike and Callie. Hey Mike, hey Callie, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have both of you here. How are you guys?
Hey, very, very glad to be here. It's been a minute.
It has been.
It really has.
It has. It's really nice to see you guys. We were just chatting. It's been like 2019, 2018 in San Diego, I think, of all places that we last saw each other, right?
Yeah, I think I've got a feeling the next few years are going to be filled with a lot of trying to remember how long it's been since you saw everyone you then reconnect with. So yeah. It's crazy it's been so long, man.
I know, it's crazy. Well, it's good to see you guys. I'm glad that you guys are doing well. Mike, I like the new hairdo. I love it. It's looking really good.
Thank you.
I couldn't pull it off. I just don't have the hair, but no, it's great. And Callie, nice to see you as well. Excited to dive into this conversation. But before we do that, why don't you guys, introduce yourselves, kind of share with our audience here at Uscreen what you guys do, who you are, where you're based out of, and just a little bit about your journey, inside of the memberships world. Yeah,
so you bigged us up quite well in your introduction to the episode. So we are Mike and Callie. We are the membership geeks because we are particularly geeky about the online membership world, and we teach amazing people from all industries, all walks of life, how to monetize their expertise by creating a paid online membership community.
Yeah, and the main way we do that is, of course, via our own membership community, membershipacademy.com, where we've helped literally thousands of experts and influencers over the last 7 years now to start and grow successful memberships of their own.
Yeah, and before we were doing this, we used to work exclusively with clients on creating their own memberships, and we've had the great honor of being involved in some very, very successful memberships that scaled up to several million a year in revenue, tens of thousands of members. And yeah, it's just fun to be able to leverage all that knowledge and experience and take it on a much larger scale, helping much more people to launch their own successful membership businesses. That's
amazing. Yeah, I mean, even before, I think when I first met you guys already had, the brand was called Membership Guys, right? And,
yes.
But you guys have just relaunched a new brand, and now it's Membership Geeks, which love the name, love the new brand, everything. The colors are fantastic. What's the story behind that? What's the, what was behind the switch over into the new branding?
Well, you might have noticed there's only one guy.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. That's kind of part of the reason. Yeah, a big part of the reason.
Yeah, I think there's a few reasons. It's something where we've always been quite literal with our naming of everything that we do. We're very, very just on the nose. And the Membership Guys was the name that kind of just fit at the time. It was simple. It was easy. It was, available everywhere. And it was kind of what we were known as. And here in the UK, at least, guys is very much kind of used for a group of people. It's not a gendered term, particularly. It's just used.
Yeah, we just heard it on all these US TV shows, and just everyone called each other
That.
And it just said what we did. And we met through a networking membership. So we actually met in a membership, a business networking membership. And there were a few people where it was kind of like, the internet marketing guy, the SEO guy, the accounting guys. And so, creative genius at work here. We're just like, yeah, we're the membership guys. We're those, we're the guys who do memberships.
Yeah.
And I think, how long was it, Callie, after we really went public with the brand, with the first blog and the podcast? How long was it before somebody made that comment of, why is it guys when one of you's female?
I think it was probably the very first day, but having said that, over the 7-8 years, we've not had it that much. It was just a handful of times, but it's one of those things where when we came up with the better name, it better fit us. It's more of our personality. We are big geeks, and our audience are big geeks about memberships as well. So it fits both us and our audience more than the name Membership Geeks. And also, reading the room a little bit, things in terms of the way language is used these days, there's so much more focus on, paying attention to things like inclusivity and diversity. And so, whilst it's not been something that has been been pointed out as a big issue to us, we're very aware of not wanting anybody to feel unwelcome by the name of the business either.
Like the word guys is just so benign. Like, it doesn't say anything. It was just, the focus was always on the membership bit, right? That's what we wanted people to get. The guys was just there because you can't just call yourself memberships. But just because it was a non-thing to us, isn't really reason enough to not actually, look at it and say, there might be some people who see this and, they don't get it, or it is, something that makes them feel a little excluded. And we don't care about the term guys within our brand enough for us to kind of even just entertain the possibility that someone might look at the name and kind of think, well, that language isn't like in keeping with, how I would expect it to be used, or it doesn't make me feel excluded or whatever. So, and Geeks is just more fun.
It is.
It is more us. It's more personality. And we're enjoying being able to bring a bit more of that into things now.
Yeah. No, I mean, when I think of your business and what you do, I actually had to think of the old name for a while. It's like, what was the name before it was membership? Because I just think Mike and Callie, like, the people that are like, oh, memberships. I want to talk to somebody about memberships, and Mike and Callie. And I didn't even realize you could have changed the name. I wouldn't have known the difference, so, which is probably a really good job on, your guys' brand. So I'm really curious because the last couple of years, obviously with the pandemic, everybody's gravitated to online, YouTube videos, everything, has been all about just online content and migrating your even your meetups to virtual meetups on Zoom. I remember when pandemic started, there was all these happy hours on Zoom happening, which is crazy. But I'd love to hear your guys' experience, being like right in the middle of this crazy, the membership world and online communities and recurring memberships and stuff. What's it been like? Has the business just exploded, or what's going on? What's the experience?
Well, it's been interesting. So the impact on kind of the online membership industry in general it's been twofold. So first of all, obviously a lot of people with the pandemic found their situation changed. Mm-hmm. They were either furloughed or their job disappeared, or just their ability to actually do the thing that brings in money was just hampered by the fact they couldn't see anyone. Mm-hmm. So, that obviously meant more people were trying to find new ways to earn money, new ways to put their expertise into practice, or to pivot their business and take it online, either as a complete new direction, or maybe to just focus on something that had always been a lesser priority, or had always been on the someday we'll do this kind of list. So we've seen a lot of new memberships start, a lot of new information businesses and online businesses in general, but memberships in particular, lots of new memberships starting. And again, quite often these are plans that somebody maybe had to create a membership, but they'd never really had that push to get round to it, and the pandemic gave them that push.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and one of the examples I love of that is one of our members, Jim Cooney from Amplified Artists. His industry is performing artists. You know, he's a choreographer, and his industry was completely shut down, was shut down for nearly 2 years. And, you know, he's always done teaching at universities and things as well. So he decided to utilize that time to actually create the membership that he'd been thinking of creating for ages to actually help performing artists. And, you know, he got that up and running quickly. And not only has that enabled him to have some income throughout the pandemic, but it's also meant his members have had so much support during that time as well. So that now that things are opening back up on Broadway and things like that, they're able to get back out there and be in a really good position. So it's been good for him, but it's been good for his audience as well. And so I think there's that knock-on effect with memberships where, you know, we've seen a lot of people creating them to enable themselves to get through the pandemic, but it's enabled their members to get through the pandemic as well, which I think is awesome personally.
yeah, that's cool that you say that. It's really like, you know, we talk a lot about the entrepreneur or the brand themselves that are launching memberships, but we often, you know, sort of miss like actually addressing and pointing out just how beneficial this is for the actual members and his community, you know, and Jim's community here and all the different communities that the membership owner runs and facilitates and creates those communities. So can you guys speak a little bit about where community fits in the membership and whether that's a must-have? Because some memberships don't have communities. Right. Some memberships is like just getting access to exclusive content or something. Right. Like Netflix, for example. Right. Subscription. But with the clients you guys are working with, where does community fit and what's the priority for community?
Yeah. Most of the clients that we work with, most of what we would consider a typical online membership. Kind of, first of all, membership is just such a broad, vague term. So we always kind of have to find ourselves saying online membership because there's a very particular type of website and ecosystem that fits into that bracket, right, of online membership business. Generally, it's a combination of content, coaching, and community in some way, shape, or form. The content is usually e-learning based, so it's usually video based, it's usually courses. It can be other formats, but typically that's what you're looking at. It's e-learning. The coaching is usually live and interactive via Q&As. And the community is usually either a forum, a private discussion forum, or a private kind of Facebook group or social media group. So I think that, just to clarify that, because Netflix, you kind of sort of say, okay, well, technically it's somewhere where you pay a subscription to get an account to access content. But that's not what people are talking about in the online business space when they're talking about memberships, right? So community plays such a huge role in the success of memberships. You can be successful without it. There's lots of memberships that have been. But the truth is, members will come for your content, but they will stay for your community. If that sounds like something you've heard before, it's because it's perhaps the most cliched phrase in the online membership space. It was originally said by someone called Vanessa DeMauro around 15 years ago, and it has become the most overused phrase in the membership space, but for very good reason, because it is true. Once someone has joined your site, they've consumed your courses, they've watched your videos, they've followed all your tutorials, they've downloaded what there is to download, what they need, and so on. It's the connections and the friendships and the relationships, the support system that they find within that community, within that group of people who are just like them, who are on the same path, on the same journey. That's what will get people to stick around months and years beyond the point at which they watched their final course or, you know, they've consumed the stuff they joined to consume.
Yeah, and I think you can argue that there's more ways for people to get community than ever before these days, even just with things like free Facebook groups. So why would somebody need to join a membership for community? And, we've got successful members where a community isn't a big focus of their membership. But at the end of the day, people do want to be able to share their passions, their problems, their progress with other people who understand them, who understand where they're at, where they've been, where they're going, who are in the same place as them and have access to the same kind of resources and support. And memberships are just the perfect place for that. So I think, there's more ways to get community ever before than just in a membership, but it's still such a vital element to most memberships. It is that kind of sticking glue that keeps people together and helps them to keep getting results and progress as well, because they're kind of supported through that, not just by yourself, but by other members. So I think it's about connection rather than just community for community's sake.
Yeah, and what it does as well for you as a membership owner, for you as an expert and a content creator, is it gives you a way to fill those gaps, right? Because if all you're offering within your membership is pre-made content, so a course that you've recorded or a series of tutorials, if someone has a question or if someone has a specific need that isn't within the content, where are they going to go? How are they going to get that addressed? How are those gaps, those knowledge gaps, or just that little bit of clarification, that little bit of extra push or extra information that's needed? If there's no place to go to where other people are, where you are, where there's somewhere where someone kind of say, you know what, I understand this, but I don't know how to apply it to my situation. Or I tried doing this and it turned out different to what the course suggested it would. Like the opportunity to give people a platform to just talk, to connect, to converse, to get that support from each other and from you. It just takes a business like an online membership, particularly one centered around e-learning, just to a whole other level.
Yeah, that's what you guys mentioned there about that cliche line. I totally agree, and I see it now when you guys mention it. Like all the memberships that I'm thinking run by different creators and influencers and brands, people do come for the content. But it's like just like any sort of group, even in real life, like let's say a gym, like you go because you want to, it's essentially like you want to get, in better shape and stuff. But if you made a friend at the gym that you would like meet up with and hold you accountable and, have that social interaction, you're probably going to stick around a little bit, longer before you're like, I'm not going to go anymore.
Yeah. And it's a lack of community has that opposite effect as well.
Yeah.
If you're going somewhere where there are other people, but you feel isolated, you feel alone in a place where you're actually not physically alone, that's probably going to dissuade you more than anything else and make you more likely to stop doing something that you're still getting a benefit from because you feel that isolation. And I think the last few years, the last couple of years have certainly heightened that for a lot of people. And so, community in general is a game changer. But for the online membership model, it just adds so much. Yeah. And as we kind of said, there is no one size fits all. Yeah. Approach to memberships. Anyone who tries to tell you otherwise or sell you something, that's a one size fits all. Oh, they're full of it. But there are memberships that are successful without communities. I'm thinking of teaching packs from Mark Warner, one of our longest term members. It's a membership which provides downloadable teaching materials and resources for education. So kind of fun, like worksheets and exercise packs and stuff like that. And they don't have any community element whatsoever. In fact, they tested it. Mark tested it out, and it just didn't align with what his audience were wanting. And he's been able to be extremely successful and continue to scale and grow his membership for well over a decade without any form of community, because his audience, they're busy teachers, right? Yeah. They're not spending their evenings sitting around chatting about what their class has done that day. They are joining this membership because they want resources that help them do things faster, because they don't have the time necessarily to do things the way they would love to be able to do them. So a lack of community in that respect actually totally fits. Yeah. So it's not everything, but it's a big thing.
It's a big thing
in most contexts.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's actually a really good example. Now that I think about it, there's so many things that I have so much respect for. I do have a lot of respect for, people that create online courses and programs, but I think that there is an added, there's added layers to having a successful membership where it's recurring, subscription based, because you're continually having to provide value. And there's so many aspects to it. You guys mentioned it. There's the access to the content. There's access to the leader or the influencer, whoever that person is, or the brand themselves. And then there's also sometimes community. And so for somebody that's listening right now, our audience here at Uscreen, they're all looking to build that recurring, passive, subscription-based membership model business. What are some of the things that they should consider before they dive into it, to make sure it's a fit for them?
Yeah, first thing is that word that you just threw out there. That little word, but that catches people's ear, passive. It is not passive.
Not passive.
Yeah.
It's active.
The term passive income is very heavily associated with memberships in the way that they have been taught prior to, I don't want to say prior to people like us coming on the scene, but kind of prior to people like us coming on the scene and talking about them as business models as opposed to a kind of a get-rich-quick option, right? Memberships are a business. It's just a way of doing business. It's not some kind of holy grail quick path to being able to kick back on the beach sipping cocktails as all this passive income just magically appears in your bank account. But unfortunately, memberships are the kind of thing where it can be very, very easy to convince people that they do generate passive income because they are a very leveraged business model. And that's where I think the distinction needs to come in. The amount of money that you can make with a membership is certainly free of the kind of limits and the caps that you might have if you're working with clients one-on-one, if you're billing people per hour, where there's always going to be a ceiling to how much you can earn. So the earning potential is a lot higher. The fact that a membership is one-to-many, which means, every hour that you're putting in is potentially helping thousands of people and creating value for thousands of people and becomes a permanent piece of value within your product that then increases, how much you can charge for it or how effectively you can market it. So it's definitely better leveraged. The one-to-many element, the recurring element. So it's just, that baseline of how much money you're making month after month, year after year, will generally go up and up and up and up. Even if you decide you're not doing any marketing in one given month, you don't attract any new members in one given month, you've still got that revenue from previous months' members, right? So all of that is fantastic, but it's definitely not passive. It definitely takes work to make it work.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the most important thing to remember is when it comes to that, though, you set the terms on your membership. So you get to decide how much you do in your membership, what you're giving people, what you're creating. And I think probably the biggest mistake we see people make is coming in and deciding that they want to give people everything and over deliver. And not only does that not serve your members because really they need the few things that are going to give them results, but it also creates a rod for your own back. So if you are doing it because you want more time, for example, but you've decided that the deliverables you're going to provide in your membership mean that you're going to have to work 30 hours a week just to deliver that, let alone anything else, then you've kind of put yourself in a bit of a bad situation. So you need to think when you're creating your membership, okay, so what is each of these things that I'm going to be offering? How does that work for me? Does it work for me? Is there a better way that I can do this? Do I really need to be releasing a 2-hour course every week, or is a 145-minute workshop a month and a Q&A going to actually get people better results? So actually thinking about, it's not about throwing everything possible at it, especially if you want this to be something that actually gives you time back. You need to really go into it considering what you're actually creating and not just copying and pasting what somebody else is doing.
Yeah, you need to know what you want to get out of it, what you want your life to be, what you're capable of, and what you have the capacity to facilitate. If you want a membership, like Callie said, if you want a membership where literally all people get as a member is one 45-minute session per month, do it. You obviously then have to understand that that's not going to appeal to everyone, but actually some people, that might be better than getting just a torrent of content thrown at them every single day, because yes, they're getting more for their money, but it's overwhelming and they're never going to consume it. You get to set the terms. You get to craft your membership model in the way that best suits you and best suits your members. And kind of tying it back to what we said about passive income, it's really about understanding that passive isn't a binary thing. Mm-hmm. Something isn't either passive as in you sit back and all this money flows in, or it's not passive and you have to work your butt off, 23 and a half hours a day. Like, you get to kind of find your sweet spot of what works for you, what works for your members. And as Callie said there, creating the business you want, not just trying to mimic what someone else is doing. If someone is just starting a membership, that's definitely something you need to be mindful of. So many people overcomplicate things because they see all these all singing, all dancing memberships, and they want everything they have and everything the other membership they saw has and everything that this other place has, and they want this big behemoth, this big beast of a product. And they think they need every feature. They think they need every bell and whistle under the sun. But actually, the smartest thing to do when you start a membership is just to keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
It's that KISS principle. Keep it super simple. Memberships aren't a finite product. They're not a finished product. You don't create everything your membership will ever offer and then launch it. They are a living product. They're going to be added to. They're going to evolve. They're going to change over time. So if you start simple and you start lean, you make it easier to maneuver, easier to evolve, easier to adapt. Mm. You can make things more complicated over time, but it's smart to start simple, because until you've got paying members, you don't know what they're going to want. You don't know what's going to strike a chord with them. You could spend months building this all singing, all dancing behemoth of a membership and then launch it and find out people don't need 99% of what you've just done. Yeah. So for anyone wanting to start out, start simple and evolve it over time.
Yeah, I love that. One of our users, his name's Jason David. He's got a membership and very successful one. Recently, he said that it becomes easier to promote his membership because he's adding new content every week. So technically, and he's not raising his prices, right? And so technically, his members are getting more and more value as the membership continues and lives on, and and he adds more content in there for the same price as a year ago, 2 years ago. And so, but it does kind of make me think, obviously if somebody's coming across our conversation here and they have a massive audience that's ready and wants a membership to be launched from them and subscribe to it, easy, no brainer to start a membership. But for somebody that's starting, is there sort of a minimum size of an audience before you should consider launching a membership? I'm sure this hasn't been asked to you guys before, but how many subscribers or how many followers, how big of an email list, does that matter? Or can you start with just a handful of people?
I would say it really depends on the audience. So how engaged and specific is the audience? So we've had members launch memberships with just 100 people on their email list and get 70 of them to join the membership. Wow. Because it was a really highly specific membership. It was perfect for that audience. Whereas you have other people who might have 10,000 people on their list. They launch their membership and only 100 of them join, because actually that list's been built over years. It's been about lots of different topics. And so actually they're not necessarily all the perfect audience for this. So it really is about how big a fit your audience is for your membership as to how many of them will convert in the first place. But we tend to say a minimum audience for most people should be 300 to 500 people on your email list, because even at standard conversion rates, that still will give you, a nice starting point. Mm-hmm. And then, as Mike mentioned before, in terms of what you add to your membership, memberships are always evolving. So it's not like a course launch where you launch and you need to get everybody in at your launch, because that's the only time you're selling. Once your membership's up and running, you can be continually getting members in. So it's not a case of, you need to have this huge list to launch because that's your only chance to get people to buy.
Yeah, as long as you're continuously feeding that pipeline and you've got this, something we call the membership marketing flywheel. If you've got your flywheel in place, you've got that constant flow of new people coming into your world, engaging with your free content and your lead magnets coming onto your email list, and you're nurturing them that way, then you'll get that steady stream of new members coming in. Recognizing that and recognizing that memberships are a long-term business model. It is about the long game. It isn't about, okay, I'm launching this product on this date and I'm closing the doors to it 3 days later, and so I need as many people as possible, all just for this one small window. Like, that's not what successful memberships are about. That's kind of the worst of both worlds when you see that approach used with many memberships. But having that flow kind of negates the need to have that insanely high list. But you do need a following. You do need an audience. Like, build it and they will come is not a solid business strategy. You need that audience, not just so you have enough people to put you in a position of having a chance of success. You also need an audience so that you can actually find out what their needs are. Like, all of us in business, membership model, YouTuber, podcaster, courses, whatever the heck we do, we're all in the same business. We're all in the business of solving problems. That's it. That's all we do. Yeah. But you can't create a solution until you know what those problems are. And the only way to accurately know what those problems are is to actually speak to the people who have them, right? And if you don't have an audience, there's no one in the room with you, then you're just guessing. So you need that following, you need that audience to be able to better ascertain what's keeping them up at night, what would make their life easier, where are they trying to get to. And once you know that, then you can look at it and say, okay, I know what the journey needs to be. Here's what I can provide to help people get from A to B to C to D. Here's where I come in. This is how a membership would fit in. You need to do that. And then you need to validate that people will pay you for that. You know, it's one thing to have an audience. It's one thing to have a fantastic membership. But if you can't connect the dots between the two, it doesn't matter how hungry the audience are, how fantastic your product is. If you cannot compel people to take action, to put their hand in their pocket and pay you for that solution to their problem, you're never going to get anywhere. So you need to have that following. You need to work with them in the process of planning out what you're going to do, and you need to validate your idea before you invest time and money into it. And I would say that's probably the biggest mistake we see people making, is trying to skip all of that and just launch the membership. Yeah. Like, sometimes you do it, but it's a crapshoot, right?
Yeah. No, that's good advice. That's really good advice. You know, people need to know what they're walking into and have a plan, and not just, like you said, you can't just build it and they will come. So good to hear from you guys that that's exactly the truth. You know, you guys said earlier that the last couple of years, you know, things have been kind of fast forwarded with how people are gravitating online and memberships and communities online. What do you guys see as, you know, sort of the next year or two in this space, in the membership space? What are some predictions that you guys have?
Honestly, the next year or two, a lot of the same. Like, the last few years has definitely seen acceleration in tech, particularly. You know, the introduction of like Zoom rooms and stuff like that. Like, so many new options for enabling people to connect virtually in ways that probably wouldn't have organically developed as part of the very software that's out there. They probably wouldn't have come as quickly, those features that we now kind of just have as part of our day-to-day way of connecting with people online. So that's been, if there is a silver lining in the membership space, that's definitely been that. But really, I think the community side of things is only going to become more and more important in memberships and in online business in general. The value of community is something that it seems like people in the online business space have only really started waking up to in the last year or so. But us who've been running memberships, like, we've known it all along. It's been at the heart of what we do this whole time. More people than ever are going to want that connection, want that support, want that accountability and so on from their people and their crowd. And it'll be interesting to see how that blends back into real world once we're all able to get out there again. But I don't see any volatile change happening. You're going to probably have a lot more niche private communities, not just in memberships, but in general. You know, social media create this big noisy hall, this vast cavernous space where everyone just kind of comes in together. But now I think people, because we've all been in that big space and that big noise, I think now more and more people are siphoning off into their own little groups and getting away from that noise a little bit. And I think we'll continue to see that.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily enough to just put out great content these days. There's so much great content out there for free on pretty much every topic imaginable, whether, you know, as I said, free and paid. But these days, people need to connect with you, your story, your brand, why you do what you do, why it matters. Essentially, why should they pick you over Joe Blogs next door, who's kind of teaching the same thing, but maybe in a slightly different way? And I think that ties into what Mike said too, because there's very few untapped markets out there these days. So people are more and more seeing the value of smaller, more close-knit memberships over trying to grow a generic membership of thousands. So I think niching is really kind of coming into its own even more than ever in terms of the specificity. Oh, that's a really hard word to say.
Specificity.
Of memberships. And, you know, and with that is coming kind of standards and expectations are higher than ever before. Mike touched on tech there. So with that, people are expecting more customized experiences, tailored content, higher touch support. And I think we're already starting to see this slight change in how memberships are perceived because of that, because previously, memberships have always been considered a low-ticket product. You know, if people teach value ladders, you know, where you've got the different products, memberships are usually right down there at the bottom as kind of your low-ticket entry. But that's really changing as well. And, you know, we're seeing more and more memberships and members of the Academy who are actually moving beyond that $100 a month price bracket. I think we've got members charging $500, $1,000 a month even, because of that smaller, more intimate nature. And because people are moving away from that idea that a membership just has to mean content. Mike mentioned before, you know, the 3 C's of memberships where there's a combination of content, community and coaching. And I think originally they started more content focused. Then there was that move to kind of more community focused. And now we're very much moving into a time where the coaching focus is at the forefront for a lot of people, which kind of leads itself to that more intimate, smaller group, smaller niche, higher ticket item as well.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that coaching aspect, I think once you say that word, straight away it evokes thoughts of, okay, man, am I going to have to sit and get on one-on-one Zoom calls with 1,000 different members in my week? But actually, it's more about being accessible. It's more about showing up. It's more about that personal touch and creating a tailored member experience. The fact that there's more memberships out there means the tide is rising. Standards are rising, as Callie said. It's not enough to just have a membership. Your membership needs to be exceptional. It needs to stand out. You need to find ways, scalable ways, of making each member feel like their experience is a personal one, that they're not just another number. And so that's going to be probably one of the bigger challenges membership owners are going to have in the coming years. But again, all of this, you know, this is stuff that was happening anyway. We're talking about tailored member experiences. We've been talking about that since, you know, 2014, 2015. It's just now more possible, right? And so it's starting to become a little more of a trend. Others in the industry are starting to talk about it from time to time. But the great thing, you know, one of the things I love most in the membership world is it's not a particularly volatile space. So we're not going to see any seismic shifts in the next couple of years. It's not this roller coaster of chasing new fads and trends. It's quite sedate. It's quite relaxed. It doesn't change too much. I'm sure when you ask other people in other parts of the online business space for their predictions in the coming years, guaranteed, crypto this, NFT that, Web3 this, metaverse that.
Yeah.
By the way, we already had the metaverse. It was called Second Life. And it sucked. I mean,
I quite liked it for a while.
But it kind of sucked, right? Like basically every screenshot of the metaverse, no one knows what the metaverse is, but any attempts to show what it is, it's Second Life. Anyway, let's not go down that. Honestly, my prediction: none of these things will impact the online membership space in any significant way. I guess you could kind of say online memberships are somewhat aligned with Web3 because, you know, it's a little bit of a decentralization of community groups away from the likes of Facebook and so on, but that's a bit of a stretch to throw a buzzword onto it. But yeah, otherwise, it's more connection, more personal touch, more community.
Smaller,
more bringing people together,
yeah. And I think the smaller communities, I think what you guys said, I think that's the one thing I did pick up. I am seeing that trend, even with us. We're thinking about more niche communities for, different segments of our community. So yeah, I think it's very true. And just more adoption of, memberships and communities. So yeah, very exciting. I have a ton more questions, and I'm sure this interview will spur some new questions from our community. So we'll need to get you guys back on, but I want to respect your time. Where can people, connect with you guys, learn about planning, building, and growing their memberships, after hearing you guys here?
Yeah, absolutely. The best place to find all the good stuff we put out. We put a lot of free content out over at membershipgeeks.com. Free blog articles, downloadable resources, and our fantastic podcast, if I say so myself. And of course, if you want the best of what we do, then you'll find us inside our membership about memberships, membershipacademy.com.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. And hopefully we'll be seeing each other soon at one of the conferences coming up.
Yeah, fingers crossed that they'll let us fly. But, even if not, I'm watching for Callie's face at the suggestion we won't be able to. I'm sure we'll
catch up. Considering it.
No, I'm sure we'll catch up soon. We'd love to come back and talk more
Please.
on memberships if you'll have us.
Amazing. All right. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Callie. I hope you enjoyed that episode. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you don't miss any new episodes as they're published. And if you want to learn more about using Uscreen for your business or want to join our affiliate partner program, head over to uscreen.link/podcast to get more information, and I'll see you in the next episode.